tonight on Y News. The Department of Justice sets to decide until next week on the charges against the 3 suspects of the Davao night market blast. The Philippine National Police intensifies its manhunt against the 12 ninja cops who went AWOL following their reassignment to Mindanao. The House Committee on Constitutional Amendment starts debate on proposed charter change where 2 congressmen were engaged in an unlikely encounter.
Senator Leila De Lima files a bill seeking the creation of an interagency council against extrajudicial killings in the country. Would-be migrants face tougher immigration policy in New Zealand. AnakTV and UNTV join in educating parents and guardians in choosing proper television shows for their children.
Y News begins now.
From the UNTV News and Rescue Command Center, this is Y News with Angelo Castro III and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. The Department of Trade and Industry holds this Cuento Caravan for Consumer Welfare Month. Grace Cassin will tell us why.
The Department of Trade and Industry's Consumer Protection Group opens its 3-day Discuento Caravan. For several years, the department has been in partnership with manufacturers, importers, and retailers in conducting the caravans. Here, prices of locally made shoes and bags, canned sardines, bread, and appliances dropped by 15 to 50%. DTI USEC Ted Pascual assures customers that the price of basic commodities will not be affected by the oil price hike and US dollar exchange.
Ang sabi ng mga manufacturers ganito, kung meron man taas ng currency exchange, hindi yan magkaka-epekto doon sa mga produkto nila ngayon hanggang sa Pasko. Kung sakali man, pag-iisipan pa yan by end of first quarter next year.
DTI also reminds business establishments to give exact change as required by law, like what Edna is doing in her store.
Minsan may 12.75, 50, kailangan ibigay namin yun sa consumer.
DTI also monitored the price of candles and flowers to make sure that there is no price increase as November 1 nears. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Makati City.
Residents of Baseco compound sees hope through a livelihood project set in coordination with a number of government agencies. Mon Hokson tells us why.
Malaki. Mapapakain ko na araw-araw pamilya ko. Malaking bagay para sa amin sa taga Baseco.
Residents of Baseco compound are grateful to receive livelihood assistance from a number of government agencies. Through the initiative of Senator Cynthia Villar, agencies such as the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, the Department of Health, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and the Department of Social Welfare and Development extended their share to the project. BFAR distributed fingerlings as well as tools in smoking fish to fishermen in Baseco. For its part, the Department of Health vows to build 500 common toilets that would accommodate the residents within the compound. Likewise, the Department of Social Welfare and Development has opened a Cash for Work program to residents who wish to help in building the said sanitation facilities. Meanwhile, the DNR has set to plant mangrove trees within the area as protection from storm surges. The project, spearheaded by Senator Cynthia Villar, aims to improve the lives of the poorer communities and the less fortunate in the country.
So ito yung ating magiging model community of what we can do together. Para makita natin kung paano natin ma-upgrade ang Baseco at kung maging successful tayo dito, then we can do the same in other poor communities.
Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The The Department of Health may start accepting drug-dependent patients in Nueva Ecija soon. Joanna will tell us why.
The Department of Health will open the first mega drug rehabilitation facility that is currently being constructed inside Fort Magsaysay in Nueva Ecija in November. The biggest drug rehab is among the 4 mega drug rehabilitation facilities that the government targets to build in line with its intensive campaign against illegal drugs. Health Secretary Pauline Jean Ubial says the construction of the said facility is almost 50% finished and is made of plated aluminum styro that come from China.
These materials are being used in China as well as in Japan, and I've seen these prefab facilities actually being demonstrated in Haiyan affected areas. These are the materials actually used even in Japan, which is also typhoon prone.
The said facility is 10 hectares wide and can accommodate 10,000 patients. This coming October 15, around 2,500 beds will be partially turned over to the facility, while the remaining 7,500 beds will be completed on November 16. The construction began last July through a donation of a Chinese businessman. To date, around 900 personnel from the department are under training on managing the facility. Based on the latest DOH data, there are more than 700,000 drug surrenderers from the PNP's Oplan Tokhang. Meanwhile, Secretary Ubial also reports that treatment for each patient will cost at around 10,000 pesos monthly. Ubial, however, clarifies that not all patients will be obliged to pay, as treatment in the rehab will still depend on families' capacity to pay.
The running of the treatment and rehabilitation, facility will be modeled after our existing treatment and rehab centers. So the patients that come to our facility will be assessed on their capacity to pay, and those who can pay will actually be charged.
The Health Department targets to finish the construction of 3 additional mega drug rehab facility by next year. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The PNP Anti-Illegal Drugs Group is determined to capture the ninja cops on AWOL with or without cash reward. Leila Ilagan will tell us why.
The AIDG left no stones unturned talaga, even without the supposedly 2 million reward. Talaga namang we are doing our job.
The Philippine National Police Anti-Illegal Drugs Group has intensified its pursuit operations against the so-called ninja cops even before President Rodrigo Duterte releases the 2 million pesos bounty. Including in those whom the AIDG is tracking are the 13 policemen from the National Capital Region Police Office, specifically from QCPD, who were transferred in Mindanao in July. Since the shooting incident that happened in August, when 2 of them were shot and eventually 1 of them are wounded and killed, all 11 of them were on absent without leave. They are from the ranks of Police Officer 1 or PO1 to Police Senior Inspector. They are likely to face administrative charges.
He would undergo per se preliminary pre-charge investigation, then summary dismissal proceedings.
Ninja cops have long been operating in Metro Manila, claiming protection from a higher police officer. Leila Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue Camp Karame.
The Department of Justice is set to decide the charges against 3 Davao Blast suspects until next week to comply with the reglementary 15-day period to resolve inquest cases. DOJ prosecution panel headed by Senior Assistant State Prosecutor Peter Ong has submitted the case against TJ Macabalang, Wendell Factoran, and Musali Mustafa for resolution. The 3 suspected members of terrorist Maute Group were charged under Republic Acts No. 9516 and 1059-1 for illegal possession of firearms and explosives. In their counter affidavits, they denied the allegations, implying that the evidence against them were planted. Meanwhile, the Philippine Army and PNP-CIDG are looking into their inclusion as respondents in the terrorism and murder charges filed in Davao City. Let's Let's take a look at the traffic situation now on some major thoroughfares in Metro Manila. For those traveling along EDSA, expect a huge volume of vehicles on both lanes of EDSA Guadalupe. In EDSA Balintawak, the flow of vehicles is light to moderate on both lanes. And lastly, in Letre Malabon, motorists can expect light flow of vehicles on the lanes going to Monumento and C4 Navotas Road 10.
Next in Y News. Two congressmen engaged in an unlikely encounter during today's House Committee debate on the proposed charter change.
The Department of Justice defends jurisdiction over Senator Leila De Lima's illegal drugs case.
Y News will be right back. The House Committee on Transportation has decided to prioritize the passage of a traffic crisis bill instead of the emergency powers for the Duterte administration. Nel Mariboc will tell us why.
The House Committee on Transportation scrapped the term emergency powers in its own legislative proposal. Instead, the committee will now push for the passage of the traffic crisis bill, wherein the power that will be given to the chief executive is limited only to land traffic issues.
Now, we have also established na based on the statements coming from General Manager of NAIA and Philippine Ports Authority on whether or not there exists air congestion and port congestion. So they categorically stated na there is none. So ang problem is land, yung traffic crisis.
According to House Transportation Committee Chairman Cesar Sarmiento, a special body will be created and will implement the policies to address traffic problems. The said sole authority will not contradict the powers of the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA.
We have identified that there must be a harmonization ng mga batas. So in creating a single traffic authority, so bibigyan siya ng authority na i-harmonize yung mga conflicting ordinances, no? Yung like for instance, yung pag-clear ng mga kalsada.
The special body will be given 3 years. Then after, the lower house plans to strengthen the mandates of MMDA. The traffic crisis bill is expected to be tackled in plenary by November. The House Minority Group, meanwhile, said the government should make some initiatives to lessen the traffic congestions while waiting the approval of Congress on the emergency powers.
Yung mga barangay kasi nag-gate we have to clear the secondary roads.
Parang GPS, tingnan na ninyo lahat at mag-aral na tayo kung nasaan yung alternative road na pwede nating gamitin.
For now, the committee has currently conducting hearings on the proposed emergency powers. Nel Mariboc, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
The Department of Transportation is in need of an additional 3.94 billion funding for the implementation of its plans and programs that aims to ease traffic. Joyce Balancho will tell us why.
The Senate Committee on Public Services terminates its last public hearing today on the proposed granting of emergency powers to President Rodrigo Duterte that is seen as the immediate solution to traffic woes. Committee Chair Senator Grace Poe says, although the proposed bill from the Department of Transportation or DOTR still needs clarity, there are certain provisions that are likely to get approval.
Sigurado na magkaroon ng Central Traffic Agency. Sa tingin ko, isa yan na magiging malinaw. Tapos, syempre pagdating sa acquisition ng right-of-way.
For his part, Senator Ralph Recto says the Central Traffic Agency might fail in addressing traffic woes if it will hold the National Traffic Management Scheme.
I think para may focus, why should it be in all 80 provinces, 1,500 municipalities, 105 cities, One is Metro Manila, particularly EDSA to start with. Yan ang number one. Anong maaasahan natin doon?
Iniisip ng ating butihing senador ay sa lahat ng munisipyo, sa lahat ng syudad ay nandoon tayo. Hindi ho. Tayo po ay magfo-focus sa mga urban areas. Nandyan po 'yan sa ating binalangkas na draft bill.
Recto posits DOTR is not ready if the Senate grants emergency powers, saying the funds needed to implement projects are not even included in the 2017 National Expenditure Program. DOTR Undersecretary Raul Creencia says they have not yet identified on the onset all the projects that need funding. This is why they have included now in their proposed bill the needed 3.94 additional budget. This will be used for the hiring of the additional 13,000 traffic enforcers that will implement the decongesting plans in highly urbanized areas.
Interagency Council for Traffic ay nagsagawa na ng pag-aaral at meron na tayong 17 alternative routes na na-identify. Meron na din tayo mga mabuhay lanes na na-identify at na-identify na rin po natin ang kinakailangang tauhan enforcers.
Committee Chair Senator Grace Poe assures that through the Oversight Committee, the emergency powers will not be abused, especially in the procurement process of projects.
Ayaw natin pabagalin ng sistema pero ayaw din natin pag nakawan tayo. Kaya yun yung sisiguraduhin namin hanggat ako'y nasa Oversight Committee, hindi ito magiging balakid kung hindi isang pagkakataon para masiguro natin na ang proyekto ay magiging epektibo para talagang masolusyonan ang problema sa traffic.
Poe says she is optimistic that before this year ends, the proposed bill will be approved in third reading. In the meantime, she proposes measures to ease traffic that can be implemented even without granting of the emergency powers. These include prohibiting parking in sidewalks, providing parking spaces for all vehicles, and designating proper places for jeepney stops, among others. Joyce Balancio, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate of the Philippines.
Malacanang believes President Rodrigo Duterte carefully studies his every decision in terms of leading the country, particularly on the issue regarding the South China Sea dispute. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
Malacanang is firm in its stance that President Rodrigo Duterte is aware of the government's responsibilities when it comes to the country's exclusive economic zone, despite his initial statement that the country won't participate in joint patrols in the South China Sea. President Duterte previously stated that he rejects the participation of the armed forces of the Philippines in joint patrols alongside the U.S. in the South China Sea. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella says the president has other alternatives and that he knows what to do in taking care of the country's territory.
As per the president's decision, this is which has been carefully considered. He has his own alternatives regarding the matter, and he is fully aware of his responsibility regarding the EEZ.
Yesterday, Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio said that based on the Constitution, the country has to protect its territory, including its exclusive economic zone, adding that's the reason why the Philippine-U.S. Joint Patrol in the West Philippine Sea is important. The magistrate also believes that only the U.S. can prevent China from invading the territory of the Philippines. Meanwhile, although President Duterte's statements regarding the changes in foreign policy, especially his plans to create an alliance with China and to end the joint military exercises with the U.S. drew controversy, Malacanang still believes the Philippines' relationship with ASEAN member countries remains strong.
The relationship of the Philippines with the rest of the neighbors, ASEAN neighbors, are strong, and as witnessed by the fact that the trips have been made and assurances have been made on both sides. And based on policies also, relationships with ASEAN countries remain fundamentally solid.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
The Committee on Constitutional Amendments goes on a deadlock on its first day of hearing. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
The Committee on Constitutional Amendments starts its debate on the proposal to amend some provisions of the 1987 Constitution. Each member of the committee presented their positions on how the Constitution should be amended. A large majority of them choose Constituent Assembly than Constitutional Convention. This prompted Deputy Speaker Gwendolyn Garcia to move for an official voting process.
May I move that this committee recommend as a mode of amending the Constitution the convening of Congress as a Constituent Assembly.
But some lawmakers rejects the said mode of amending the Constitution. Opposition congressmen emphasized that the committee should detail the voting system on the CONAS. Congressman Ron Salo says the issue may face constitutional challenge before the Supreme Court.
I have serious doubts whether that will really be expedient, being met with constitutional challenge before the Supreme Court on the simple issue of whether the Congress would be voting separately or voting jointly.
During the debate, Congressman Prospero Pichay and Robert Barbers got into a heated argument.
Pardon my French, Mr. This is not a motion. Let us not pretend to be constitutionalist here.
The chairman called for a break. Barbers then walked towards Pichay and the two almost got into a fist fight.
I move to adjourn. Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn. There's an incident here.
Because of the incident, the chairman of the committee immediately suspends the hearing, which left the voting on a deadlock. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
The Malacanang is now awaiting response from the United Nations on the Duterte administration's invitation to investigate cases of extrajudicial killings in the Philippines. Aga Kaakbay will tell us why.
The Malacanang has officially sent an invitation to United Nations Special Rapporteur Agnes Calamard. However, presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella says they have not received any response yet.
Palace invites the UN to probe killings. Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea said the Palace has sent the invitation to UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Calamard and is awaiting her response.
The letter dated September 26, 2016 was personally signed by Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea. It encourages UN Special Rapporteur to investigate the alleged extrajudicial killings connected to the government's anti-drug campaign.
In its invitation, the Palace also urged the UN Rapporteur to include in her investigation the killings of law enforcers by drug suspects so that she could obtain an accurate perspective of the drug problem in the country.
President Rodrigo Duterte has been criticizing the UN, the EU, and even US President Obama because of their comments about the administration's anti-drug war and the increasing number of drug-related killings in the country. Meanwhile, the Malacanang has not yet revealed as to when it would send an invitation to the European Union and to US President Barack Obama for them to conduct their respective investigation on the issue. Aga Kaakbay, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
Meanwhile, just in, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Killings, Agnes Calamard, welcomes the Duterte administration's invitation to investigate alleged extrajudicial killings in connection with President Rodrigo Duterte's anti-illegal drugs campaign. In her Twitter account, United Nations or Calamard says she is still waiting for the letter and confirmation by official channels. The Department of Justice will proceed with the preliminary investigation on the drug trafficking case filed against Senator Leila De Lima, despite the lawmakers' objection on the agency's jurisdiction over her illegal drugs case. Roderick Mendoza will tell us why.
Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre insists that DOJ has jurisdiction over the drug trafficking case filed against Senator Leila De Lima. This despite De Lima's objection, claiming that the case against her should have been filed before the office of the Ombudsman.
May concurrent jurisdiction ng DOJ and the Ombudsman. Yan naman hindi naman bago kay Secretary De Lima yan eh. Yung mga the Department of Justice during her time conducted so many preliminary investigations on cases which are cognizable by the Sandigan Bayan. Katulad nung mga case ng PCSO, yung pork barrel, yung pita. O bakit hindi niya yan forward doon sa ombudsman during her time?
Aguirre says they will just proceed with the conduct of preliminary investigation and they may form a panel to handle it. They will then transmit the findings to the ombudsman. Aguirre also rebuts De Lima's statement that she doesn't expect fairness from the DOJ.
But ngayon, 2016 ay yung ginagamit niya yung selective justice. Yan yung nagsabi na ang selective justice is not the defense of the innocent.
Aguirre further says the NBI may also file separate drug and graft charges against De Lima. He adds more respondents may be included in the charges. Yesterday, drug trafficking charges were filed against De Lima and 7 others in relation to Bilibid drug trade. Roderick Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Residents in the island barangay of Talim in Rizal Province were able to seek medical consultation despite the distance from the city proper. June Soria will tell us why.
A total of 916 residents of Talim Island in Rizal Province have benefited from the free medical services rendered by UNTV in cooperation with the members Church of God International and the Philippine Medical Association Rizal Chapter. Specifically, the medical mission has reached Barangay Bombong that has over 4,000 residents whose livelihood is mainly fishing. Since the place is remote, the residents can hardly have their illnesses checked by medical professionals.
Ang lang nakita natin ay yung kakulangan nila ng kapasidad na magpatingin. O makikita na natin yung effect halimbawa ng hindi pagpapatingin kagaya ng mga masasakit ng mga kasukasuan o yung mga arthritis.
Because of the medical mission, residents were able to avail free medicines, free medical, optical, pediatric and dental services, as well as free haircut for men. Lenny Di Tablan was among those assisted by UNTV and its partners.
Malaki pong tulong, napakalaki pong tulong lalo po sa katulad ko na syempre po bago ka makapagpa-check up sa kailangan nyo po syempre pamasahe, pera, 50.
Barangay Bongbong's captain has expressed his gratitude for the assistance the residents have received.
Unang-una ako ay nagpapasalamat sa Diyos sa grupo ni mga Brother Eli Soriano at saka si Daniel Rason dahil dinala ninyo ang biyayang at pagpapalang medical mission dito sa amin. Kung mayroon pa kayong pagkakataon na umulit dito, nakahanda kami at dalawang kaming tatanggapin namin.
Talim Island is under the jurisdiction of Binangonan and Cardona, Rizal. It takes an hour to reach Barangay Bombong by boat from the port in Binangonan. Jun Soriao for Serbisyong Kasangbahay.
Coming up, would-be migrants face tougher immigration policy in New Zealand.
AnakTV and UNTV join in educating parents and guardians in choosing proper television shows for their children.
More from Y News after this break. A low-pressure area, or LPA, is continuing to move towards the country. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAG-ASA, located the LPA at 610 kilometers east of Guian, eastern Samar. This weather system will bring moderate to occasionally heavy rains in eastern Visayas and Caraga region. The intensity of rains may cause landslides and flash floods. Light to moderate rains will be experienced in the Bicol region, Mimaropa, and the rest of Visayas and Mindanao. Isolated rain showers and thunderstorms will prevail over Metro Manila and the rest of the country. The LPA is expected to intensify into a tropical depression in 24 hours and may hit Luzon area in the weekend. It will be named Karen if it becomes a tropical cyclone. The education system in Haiti is in crisis as 100,000 children were left without schools to attend. Lendel Geffrard tells us why.
It's been almost a week since the powerful Hurricane Matthew, the fiercest Caribbean storm in nearly a decade, slammed into Haiti on Tuesday with 140-mile-per-hour winds. More than 100,000 children have no schools to attend, as the country's learning centers were either damaged or made into shelters. In total of 300 schools are thought to be damaged. Entire neighborhoods in the commune of Gerry on Haiti's southwest peninsula, one of the hardest hit areas, were completely leveled by the ferocious hurricane. According to the UNICEF stats, 30,000 families have been affected, 66,000 houses have been destroyed, and 20,000 houses have been heavily damaged in the town of Gerry, the capital of Gadas. Local officials showed that 1,000 people were killed by the storm in Haiti, which has a population of about 10 million. Authorities had to start burying the dead in mass graves in Gerry because the bodies were starting to decompose. Aid supplies such as food and tents coming from Venezuela, Bolivia, and Colombia have been pouring into Haiti, with more international aid expected to come. Linda Jafar, UNTV News and Rescue, Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Hopes for a lasting peace in Colombia are still high after the government's rejection of the first deal with the FARC guerrilla group. RC Reyes will tell us why.
Freshly crowned Nobel Peace Prize laureate Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos and the National Liberation Army rebel group are to start peace talks on October 27 in Ecuador's capital, Quito. The schedule is in accordance with the agreement signed in Caracas by both sides under the auspices of Venezuela's government. Santos won the Nobel Peace Prize last week for his efforts to end a 52-year-old war with the leftist Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, a surprising choice given that voters then narrowly rejected the deal in a referendum. Reports say the peace talks are expected to open doors to the possibility of complete peace in Colombia.
Y ahora que avanzamos con el ELN será completa, será una paz completa. Los ojos del mundo nos observan y esperan lo mejor. Todos los colombianos, los del sí, los del no, los que no votaron, tienen la esperanza de que logremos salvar las dificultades y seguir adelante.
Colombia and the ELN agreed in March to launch peace talks in parallel with the government's negotiations with the FARC, but the government said negotiations with the ELN could not begin until the group freed all of its hostages. In the text presented in Caracas, the ELN vowed to initiate the process to free hostages before October 27. The conflict in Colombia has killed more than 260,000 people, left 45,000 missing, and uprooted nearly 7 million more. Over the decades, it has drawn in several leftist rebel groups, right-wing paramilitaries, and drug gangs. The last two leftist rebel groups, the FARC and ELN, have been at war with the state since 1964. The ELN is estimated to be about a quarter the size of the FARC, with about 1,500 fighters. RC Reyes, UNTV News and Rescue, Bogota, Colombia.
The government of New Zealand has imposed another change in its migration policy that sets stricter rules for residency applications. J. Villuan will tell us why.
Nag-lodge ako nung application for residency under skilled migrant 2015 May. Hanggang ngayon wala pa ring feedback kung anong result doon sa aking application for residency. Hopefully, sana hindi maka-apekto doon sa aking application, which is may bagong policy ang Immigration New Zealand na ibinaba.
Would-be migrants in New Zealand are facing a tougher policy to gain residency under the skilled migrant and family-sponsored categories. Immigration Minister Michael Woodhouse has announced this week that fewer residence approvals will be planned for the next 2 years, with levels down to 85,000 to 95,000 from 90,000 to 100,000. The number of points required for residence will also be raised from the current 140 to 160 points. under the skilled migrant category. Likewise, the number of places for the CAP family categories would be reduced to 2,000 per year from 5,500. The changes were made following a review of the government's New Zealand Residence Program, or NZRP. The program sets a planning range for the total number of people approved residents over a multi-year period and determines the proportion of residence places allocated to the different residence streams.
At sa ngayon po, mabigat po sa kapwa ko Pilipino na mag-apply po sa ngayon dahil po kailangan po nila ng 160 points, dati po 140. Kailangan po nila ng IELTS sa ngayon po.
The new policy also seen as posing an uphill task for people from non-English speaking countries to gain residence as compulsory English language testing will be required.
Dinagdagan pa ng 6.5 na score para sa IELTS na dati ay medyo obstruction lang ay pwede na. Bilang isang Pilipinong workers under skilled category, mahirap para sa amin ngayon ang mag-apply ng residency.
Last year, 52,052 were granted residency, up from 43,085 the previous year. The change in residency policy aims to eliminate those who do not hold a qualification and do not have occupations on the skill shortage list. JB Luan, UNTV News and Rescue, Christchurch, New Zealand.
Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong is overwhelmed by a standing ovation in the Australian Parliament. Nina Bascon will tell us why.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong of Singapore marks a historic visit in Australia and is welcomed by the House of Representatives with a standing ovation as the first Singaporean premier to ever address Australian Parliament in Canberra. Lee is in Australia for an official 3-day visit to the country. In his speech, Lee spoke of the similarities between the two countries and their shared strategic interests and perspectives in the Asian region.
First, we are both open economies that rely heavily on international trade, on global markets. We both need a stable and orderly world in which countries big and small can prosper in peace. And this requires an open and inclusive social regional order where all the major powers can participate. We both see the United States as a benign force, playing a major role in fostering peace and stability in Asia.
Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong and Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull agreed to engage in a defense cooperation under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, or CSP, wherein the Singapore Armed Forces will have more training, space, and opportunities in Australia. The two countries agreed to jointly develop state-of-the-art facilities in Australia that will improve the quality of training and have more opportunities to enhance interoperability.
I'm happy that Prime Minister Turnbull and I have concluded the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, an ambitious package that enhances core aspects of our cooperation and brings together our complementary strengths.
Tomorrow, Thursday, Prime Minister Lee will join Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull in the formal signing of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between the two countries. Nina Bascon, UNTV News and Rescue, Melbourne, Australia.
The Qatari government is urged to adopt minimum labor standards as it faces a legal battle over preparations for the World Cup 2022. Ramil Ramal will tell us why.
FIFA is facing a lawsuit after ADAT's labor union likened its treatment of migrant workers to modern slavery ahead of the 2022 World Cup. In a report by Amnesty International, workers claim they live in cramped, dirty, and unsafe accommodation. Men sleep on bunk beds in rooms for 8 or more people, and recruitment agents allegedly make false promises about the salary workers will receive. It is also claimed that salaries aren't paid for several months. Since FIFA voted to hold the World Cup in a tiny Gulf state, Qatar, it has received criticisms over the alleged exploitation of its 1.7 million migrant workers. The legal challenge was brought forward by the Netherlands Trade Union Confederation, or FNB, on behalf of a Bangladeshi migrant worker, Nadim Sharaful Alam. According to FNB, workers like Nadim are lured to Qatar with enticing stories but end up working as modern slaves for the super-rich Qataris. FIFA has been given 3 weeks to take action, or Alam will file a lawsuit demanding 10,000 euros of compensation. During a visit to Qatar earlier this year, FIFA President Gianni Infantino has pledged to create a panel to monitor construction at the World Cup stadiums and ensure decent working conditions. The Swiss courts are starting to hold FIFA accountable for the millions of migrant workers brought into Qatar for the preparation of the 2022 World Cup. For each part, FIFA promised to carry out experts' recommendation about the issue. Ramil Ramal, UNTV News and Rescue, Doha, Qatar.
The World Health Organization recommends a measure to help curb obesity and diabetes worldwide. March Navarro will tell us why.
A taxation of about 20% might be an effective measure to reduce the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages, in association with other policy measures such as reducing the offer of these drinks in schools or having clear labeling of the products, or even reducing marketing of the sugar-sweetened beverages.
The World Health Organization advises governments on Tuesday to tax sugary drinks to fight the global epidemics of obesity and diabetes. Based on the agency's report issued in line with the World Obesity Day, increased taxation on sugary beverages to lead to at least a 20% increase in retail prices would result in proportional reductions in consumption of such products. Worldwide prevalence of obesity more than doubled between 1980 and 2014, with 11% of men and 15% of women, which represents more than 500 million adults being classified as obese.
WHO recommends not to exceed 10% of energy coming from free sugars, which for an average adult that corresponds to approximately 50 grams or the equivalent of 12 teaspoons per day. For a child, depending on the age and the size, that of course would be much less. But if we take the 5% recommendation, then an average adult should not exceed the 25 grams or 6 teaspoons per day.
Reduced consumption of sugary drinks means lower intake of free sugars and calories overall, improved nutrition, and fewer people suffering from overweight, obesity, diabetes, and tooth decay. According to WHO, fiscal policies should target foods and beverages for which healthier alternatives are available. Public support for such tax increases could be increased if the revenue they generate is used for efforts to improve health systems, encourage healthier diets, and increase physical activity. The report says a number of countries have taken fiscal measures to protect people from unhealthy products. Mexico has implemented an excise tax on non-alcoholic beverages with added sugar. Hungary has imposed a tax on packaged products with high sugars, salt, or caffeine levels, while the Philippines, South Africa, and the United Kingdom have also announced intentions to implement taxes on sugary drinks. Marge Navarro, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The PGA Tour hails Dustin Johnson as Player of the Year for a sensational season. Meanwhile, the Swiss Federal Tribunal denies appeals from players over ban ruling. Aaron Romero will tell us why.
The Swiss Federal Tribunal, or SFT, says it will not entertain appeals by 34 current or former players of Australian rules football's Essendon Bombers against the Court of Arbitration for Sport's decision to ban them for 2 years each. The ruling left Essendon, one of the country's richest and most storied football clubs, without 12 of their listed players for the entire 2016 season. In golf, American Dustin Johnson was hailed the PGA Tour's Player of the Year after a remarkable 2015-2016 season in which he celebrated his breakthrough victory in a major championship. The world number 2 landed the coveted honor after posting a career-best 3 wins, including his US Open triumph at Oakmont Country Club in June. Meanwhile, the famous ice skating rink in front of Rockefeller Center opens for the winter season here in New York City. U.S. Olympic silver medalist Sasha Cohen cut the ribbon to mark the rink's official opening to the public. The ice skating rink, which is celebrating its 80th season, first opened on December 25 in 1936. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
Italy has officially withdrawn its bid to stage the 2024 Olympic Games in Rome because of the staunch opposition of City Mayor Virginia Raggi. Italy's Olympic Committee Chief Giovanni Malago says he had written to the International Olympic Committee announcing the decision. Malago says the country had not only been made to look bad by backing out at the late stage, but had also missed out on a golden opportunity to attract badly needed foreign investment. Last month, the City Council of Rome voted to withdraw support of the bid on the recommendation of Mayor Raggi. With Rome's withdrawal, only Paris, Los Angeles, and Budapest are left in the running to stage the 2024 Olympic Games. Tensions are high as Team DOJ and Team GSIS get ready for their first hardcourt battle in this year's season of UNTV Cup. Bernard Dadis will tell us why.
Yes, it's a third. Itong minuto natitira sa third. Nice bid. Sally with a pirouette.
The DOJ Justice Boosters and the GSIS Furies will attempt to get their first win in their upcoming encounter on Sunday so as not to be dropped out in the first round eliminations of UNTV Cup Season 5. The GSIS is in 6th place in Group B and hasn't won any of its 2 previous games, followed by the DOJ, which has 3 consecutive losses and 0 win. The GSIS will make use of 3 weeks ahead to prepare for the Justice Boosters.
Lagi naman yan ready, competitive naman yan team na yan eh. It's just na talagang kulang lang siguro sa rotation ngayon. I-workout namin yan para sa GSIS fans.
The GSIS nearly won in its previous games.
Inconsistent yung namin eh, yung transition offense namin. Pagka nakakalamang kami ng malaki, nagre-relax sila. Ang mabigat, yung relaxation namin, yung ng team namin, mas mahaba. Siguro paghahanda namin, pagpraktisan para makuha ng hangin.
DOJ Justice Boosters, meanwhile, will depend on Jorel Cañizares, who just started to play on the UNTV Cup hardcourt in their last game. Cañizares scored 30 points and grabbed 4 rebounds in their game against the 2-time UNTV Cup champion Judiciary Magis last September 28. The Judiciary beat DOJ with a score of 84-68. The two teams will battle on the hardcourt on Sunday, October 16, 2016 at 2 p.m. at Pasig City Sports Center, airing live on UNTV with free live streaming on untvweb.com. Bernard Dadis for UNTV Cup Season 5.
Superheroes helped lift the spirits of sick children in a hospital in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Nina Ormilio will tell us why.
Superheroes have paid a visit to a Sao Paulo children's hospital where sick patients cheered up at the sight of the costumed crime fighters. Ahead of Brazil's celebration of Children's Day, the 2 window washers on Tuesday donned superhero costumes in order to brighten the day of the kids recovering at Sabera Children's Hospital. Jacqueline Amaranhao says the visit lifted the spirits of her 8-year-old daughter, Isabella.
Aí ela ficou meio assim, já se animou e levantou para ver. Então achei bastante legal. O que vocês estão fazendo anima as crianças, né? Eles ficam meio assim depressivos às vezes quando estão doentes, né? Quietinhos, e isso ajuda eles se animarem mesmo.
For the superheroes, it's all in a day's work.
Filha, igual eu chego em casa, dou um abraço na minha filha, se sinto mais fortificado, mais livre, mais calmo, mais com paz. Então eu sinto que eu pude passar essa paz para essas crianças e ao mesmo tempo tive essa paz também, que um abraço de uma criança é sempre especial, né?
Most of all, the sight of these superheroes draws smiles on the patients' faces, which are priceless.
Cada dia... Tchau! É que cada dia no hospital não tem nada para fazer e como tem essas atividades, fica mais legal o Dia da Criança.
Brazil celebrates Children's Day on October 12. Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
AnakTV held a symposium on TV literacy in Bicol. Roby De Guzman tells us why.
AnakTV, together with UNTV News and Rescue, held a symposium on TV literacy at Camarines Sur National High School in Naga City, Bicol, to guide parents and guardians in choosing the television shows suited for their children. The symposium educated more than 500 attendees about TV shows nowadays that greatly influence the youth, according to studies.
Kailangan po ang patuloy na edukasyon sa mga magulang upang yung kanilang mga anak ay huwag masyadong ma-impluwensya ng napapanood sa TV na karamihan naman ay hindi naman halos totoo. Na ito ay nagre-resulta sa behavior o yung attitude ng mga bata magkaminsan. Kaya po, kinagagalak natin ang AnakTV ay naging kapartner natin mga ilang taon na rin ang nakalilipas. At yan ay dahil nga po sa masipag naman na pagsubaybay ni Kuya Daniel Razon sa pamamahala ng UNTV bilang CEO.
The 2013 data of the Philippine Statistics Authority shows that 61% of Filipinos watch the television, 56.7% listen to the radio, 46.5% read the newspaper, while the remaining use the computer.
Inaasahan ko po na marami akong matututunan dito tulad ng yung tamang pagpili ng mga dapat na pinapanood ng mga kabataan ngayon.
According to DepEd Region 5, they are ready to help AnakTV and UNTV in educating the teachers in Bicol on how to guide their students in choosing what kind of TV programs to watch. Roby De Guzman, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Those are the reasons behind the news, October 12, 2016. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I am Darlene, Basingan.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Thank you for watching Y News.